Hello, hello. How is everybody? Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me. Everything looks good on here. I just had a momentary OBS crash. You know, when your heart stops just as I pressed start streaming, everything went kaput. But now it seems to be working. So fingers crossed, everything is good for you guys. I'm seeing some messages in the chat. Yeah, let me know. And I shall persevere and just hope this all works fine. I think it was just a momentary crash. Sometimes these things happen, but everything is looking good now. Hello, welcome. So yeah, our usual weekly Maestro live stream. All fine. I'm great. How are you? I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, really excited about this one. This is going to be a fun one today. Got some cool announcements, and we've got a cool show lined up as well, I think, hopefully, which is going to be fun. One of my favorite composers. We're just going to be spitballing, having some fun with it. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So yeah, let's think, where are we going to begin? So today, I think we have a few Maestro sort of housekeeping announcements to make before we begin. So I'll get on with those in a couple of minutes once I know everybody's sort of on chat, because, you know, it takes a couple of minutes for everybody to come have a cup of tea. I can barely get here for 4 o'clock. So I totally get it. People like to have a cup of tea, settle down. So in a minute or so, I will go and tell you about these little Maestro announcements. And then we'll get on with the subject of today's show, which is going to be very cool. So I'm doing very well, very excited about this one. Nice day here in the UK. Got my drinks, back to the 2-drink system. For those of you who used to join us on Twitch, you'll know about my multiple drinks. Hot drink, cold drink. So I've got my hot drink, and then I'll move on to my cold drink probably at some point. How is everyone else doing? I hope you've all been doing well. Hope you've been finding time to compose and do some cool music stuff. I've had a pretty busy couple of weeks, so I haven't composed as much as I would like to, but that's life sometimes, isn't it? But I've still been doing lots of cool music stuff, which has been great. And yeah, I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so I shall get on with today's show, I think, rather than string this out for too long and let you guys suffer in relative silence. Let's start with the Maestro housekeeping. We are going to be making some changes. Nothing massive, but some important changes. All stuff for the better, I think, which I'm super excited about. The first thing to say is that our streams, our weekly live streams, will be continuing, but they will be moving over to the Audio Imperia main YouTube channel. We've graduated. It's like we've left university and we're out in the wide world now. So we decided, why not move everything over to our one central platform where we do all our stuff from. So all of our Maestro content will be moving over there. Our streams, all of our competitions and challenges and all of that kind of stuff that we're doing. Me and Tom did one recently. We did a couple recently, which have been really good fun. So yeah, we're going to be moving over to our main YouTube. So if you want to carry on joining in with the Maestro Fun every week, I suggest you go over there and subscribe if you're not already. I think most of you probably are. But if you're not subscribed already, yeah, go over to our main YouTube channel, the Audio Imperia channel. We're sort of be bringing everything together, all of our stuff under one roof. We've always been Audio Imperia, small team, you know, all working together on the same stuff. But we decided, why not just bring everything together? So as for this channel, what's going to happen? Well, this channel is going to remain. It's going to have a bit of a name change, a bit of a facelift, I guess, bit of a change around. We're going to call this channel More Audio Imperia. What are we going to do with this channel? Well, we haven't 100% decided yet, but that's kind of the point. What we're going to do with this channel is turn it into a bit of a experimentation ground, a bit of a secret lab to do all kinds of different stuff. We're going to try different formats. We're going to put maybe some behind the scenes, throw it out to you guys. Maybe what do you think we should do with this channel? We just want to make this kind of a bit more, maybe irreverent, a bit more of a behind the scenes, a bit more of a casual take on what we do, and move all of the Maestro stuff over to our big channel, our main channel. Cosmodium says, I've been writing melodies but haven't orchestrated it. Hey, that's cool. That's a great place to be when you've got a melody that you're happy with, but you haven't started sort of the work of actually putting it together yet. So I'd be very excited to see what you do with it, Cosmodium. Let us know on the Discord. If you're not on our Discord, there's information, I believe, in our description of how to get on our Discord. That's where we chat all things music, share different things that we've been up to. The Discord will be staying, and that will be remaining in the same place as well. Peter says, sweet, sounds good to have it all in one place. I agree, and that's what we thought. We just thought, you know, we sort of always run Maestro and Audio Imperia slightly separately, but really we're the same team, and much of what we're doing overlaps and complements, and we just thought, why are we doing this? Let's just move everything over to the main channel, centralize everything so people can come and join us each week from there. And then this channel, as we said, we're going to turn into a bit of a exciting, experimental, irreverent, eccentric. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen on this channel? But we are going to keep it going. So do stay subscribed because there will be cool stuff happening here. And then maybe little experiments that we try here will get graduated up to our big Audio Imperia channel. Who knows? We're just going to see how it all works out. Great. Ollie from Audio Imperia, our guy, has just put the Discord link in as well. Ollie's joining us today on the chat. I think a few of the Audio Imperia guys are on chat, so do feel free to discuss, all different kinds of things, whatever you want. The guys will be on hand and hanging out with us as well, which is always good fun. Bought some libraries during AI Spring Sale. Thank you, Cosmodium. That's great to hear. And I'm super excited to hear what you do with those libraries. That's definitely one of the highlights of, being involved with Audio Imperia is we, get to hear what you guys do with the products. And it's always pretty special to hear, stuff that you've worked on or that you've been involved in working on when you finally get to hear how people are using it. It's just such a cool experience. So definitely share with us anything you do with our libraries or anybody else's libraries. It's all about sharing music. But yeah, be very excited to see what you do with those libraries. We'd love to see you use them too. Maybe we'll get around to using some today. Probably will. I think today is going to be one of those. It's a bit of a theory day, but kind of hopefully a fun theory day. We're not going to be going too technical with our theory. We're just going to be talking about composition techniques, and in particular, a certain special someone's compositional techniques, which I'm really excited about. So I think we've done most of the Maestro housekeeping there. Ollie, if I've missed anything, do let me know. But yeah, basically, Audio Imperia main channel, everything that we normally do, and a lot more is going to be moving over there. It's all going to be centralized in one place, which is going to be great fun. This Learn with Maestro channel is going to become more Audio Imperia, and it's going to become just a bit of a sort of a test lab for all future stuff as well. So there will be stuff on here, but it may take a slightly different, slightly more experimental tone in places. Maybe you'll see behind the scenes of the videos and content that we are making as well. Maybe we'll have all our horrendous outtakes and mess ups on this channel so that you can laugh at us and see how bad we really are when we're not being carefully edited. Cosmodium, so the videos that moved there, including some of the old Twitch videos, or starting from today, only the new content. So some of the old videos that we've already put up will be moving over to Audio Imperia. Everything's going to be migrated over there. Well, I'm hopefully also going to put some of the old streams up as well. We do have them, or some of them, not every single one, but quite a few of them. So hopefully we'll be able to put them in some kind of playlist or area for you guys to look back on. All the stuff we used to do in the Twitch days, which now feels, like the old days now. But obviously most of you guys here in the chat were involved in those Twitch days where we were, that was kind of our original more Audio Imperia, where we were just testing things out and seeing what we thought. Now we moved up to YouTube. Now we're moving up to the big YouTube, where we have a lot of people that we are very hopefully going to be bringing into our streams. And it's really going to become quite an exciting and diverse community, I hope, which is going to be great. Peter says, I just noticed your wall panels. I like them. Dojo-esque. I know. Yeah, these we put up for the course that I did, the Modern Composer Blueprint. We needed something because my wall was very gray. So we ended up making these, which kind of work now. I think at some point, maybe I'm going to swap them for some sort of more acoustically treated panels or something. But hey, they work. They've kind of become part of the background. Twitch nostalgia. That's it. Yeah, I enjoyed the Twitch days. They were really good fun. And Twitch is very cool, but I think that all being on YouTube, and particularly all being on our main channel, is definitely going to be cool. That's really where we're based. That's kind of our content home. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of take things to the next level. And I think that's, as we said, right back in the beginning of Twitch, this was always part of a multi-step process to sort of grow our community, test things out, get things rolling. I think we're kind of getting there now, which is cool. These weekly live streams will be broadcast on Audio Imperia, and some of our old challenges will be ported over, but all the old streams will live on more Audio Imperia. There we go. So Ollie has answered. The OG gang. Yeah, we do have a bit of an OG gang now, which is cool, but we also have new people too, which is great. It's become and is becoming a constantly evolving community. So what do we have today? With the power of my eyeball button on OBS, I can show you. We have this man, John Williams. God, look at that. That was quite technically proficient there, wasn't it? We're moving up. We're one step away from full live broadcast. Animated background changes. This is high-tech stuff, guys. So yeah, John Williams. We're talking about John Williams. Why? Well, it's just turned May the 4th. And that's obviously Star Wars Day. A lot of people were putting a lot of cool music up, including on our Discord. So if you haven't checked it on our Discord yet, a few people posted some really, really cool May the 4th Star Wars inspired remixes and mock-ups and sort of their own versions of things. It was great. I haven't listened to everything yet. I'm going to listen to the rest of it tonight, which I'm excited about. But it was so cool to hear what you guys did. You took some great themes and made them your own, sort of did them your own way. They were really cool. I'm super excited to listen to the rest of them. So we thought we'd dedicate today's stream kind of in honor of Star Wars Day, in honor of John Williams, because you can never honor John Williams enough. He's just a legend, you know. We're going to look at some John Williams compositional techniques. So today is not going to be so much about writing a whole piece of music. It's going to be maybe writing a few short different examples that kind of show different techniques that John Williams commonly uses in his cinematic scoring, which I think is going to be good fun. You look like a younger version of him. Oh, wow. I mean, I may look like a younger version, but I don't think the music skills are quite there. Thank you, though, Cosmodium. I'll take looking like John Williams. You know, he's a handsome dude, right? Maybe I should just get some glasses, maybe a bow tie. Yeah, I'll take looking like John Williams. And if I can have one 1,000th of his career in any capacity and live to his age, I'll be very happy. I think he's 93 now. I think he turned 93 at the end of February. Not a bad career, hey? And yeah, interesting fact about John Williams. I'm pretty sure he must have been 46, maybe 45 when he scored the first Star Wars film. He was obviously a very successful active composer way before Star Wars. But when you think about it, it's kind of interesting. That was when he was launched into the stratosphere. And yeah, he was sort of already been composing for a while. So he's had a very long and storied career before Star Wars. And then he had a much more, you know, a legendary career with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and all these great collaborators for another 40 years almost. No, more than that, another 50 years almost. That's crazy, isn't it? Crazy. And next tech update, we need a John Williams filter to put over Adam. If you can find a John Williams music composition filter to put over my music, I will take that in a heartbeat. Yeah, he's the man. Cool. So this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to do my pale imitation of John Williams, but more importantly, I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I really like. Some of his most sort of tried and tested techniques, go a little bit into how they work and why they work. I think it's just going to be a great way to think about cinematic scoring, think about these really, really popular, really, really effective techniques, and how they sort of level up your compositions. And the thing is, if you like any of these ideas, you can go off and try them. And again, I would love to hear if you try any of these or you write a piece using any of these techniques, do make sure you share it with us, because I would love to hear what you guys do. Some of these techniques you may know, others you may not, but we'll go through a little, you know, have a look at each one. I'm going to try and go through 5. We'll see how far we get, but I think we should better get through 5. The last Obi-Wan was great. Thank you, Cosmodium. That was really good fun, our little stream on Obi-Wan. And I think we made a shortened video of that, which is over on our Audio Imperia page. So that was cool. Good work, fun to do. And it came together quite nicely. We used pretty much all light libraries. I really love the light libraries. Like I said, I think in the stream, it's not really lightweight. It's just light, versatile. You know, it's very focused, very easy to use. And we use some light libraries. I think we used Solo as well, just for the beginning. And it came together really nicely. It's a great theme as well. I really love that theme. Obviously not as sort of legendary as a lot of his other Star Wars themes, but it's a really, really good understated theme. I think it really captures the kind of melancholy heroism of Obi-Wan well. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thought it was great. So I'm just setting up here. I'm pretty much done. As I said, we did have a bit of an OBS crash, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen throughout. If it does, I will be back. I'll figure out a way to fix it and get back to you guys. But I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that we don't have it happen again. So we shall switch over to my DAW, and then we shall start talking about some of these different techniques, different ideas, and thinking about how they're used. And we'll show some examples. So I will just wait for this to load up, and then we shall move across to my DAW. The horn in Solo plays it so well. It does. It's a beautiful, beautiful sounding horn. And yeah, I think it really, really captured it well. I was excited because I hadn't tested it out before we did the stream. I just had faith, you know, I used the Force. I don't have any Force powers, but I used the force of solo to do that theme, and it came out really nicely. Okay, I'm going to switch over and we shall continue. Here we go. We're in the DAW, the DAW, Cubase. Hats off to AI for solo and everything else. Thank you, Cosmodium. Yeah, solo is beautiful. If you want expressive, lyrical lines, I go to solo a lot. And yeah, as soon as I heard the intro to Obi-Wan, I thought solo is going to do a really good job of this. And I wasn't disappointed. We used the descant horn, if I remember, not the French horn. We do have a French horn in there as well, which is beautiful. But the descant horn, kind of like a higher pitch French horn, I guess, a little bit sweeter, just really worked, I think, perfectly for that particular sound. Okay, so we are going to go through some techniques today. I've done some quick piano sketches, and we are going to just sort of sketch these out orchestration wise. We're going to take them from piano sketches and try and sketch them out as actual pieces. So where are we going to begin? I think we're actually going to leave polychords for a moment, although they're very interesting, and we're going to go to these triads. So John Williams makes real use of triad chords in his pieces. I'm just going to load up my Ridiculous. This is what I use to show you guys. It's a nice, simple sort of keyboard, show you what we're working on. Peter says, I think solo is my favorite thing from AI, honestly. I think Cedric used it in the trailer, actually, the Obi-Wan trailer, maybe. Maybe he did. I don't actually know whether he did or not. That would be interesting to find out, because if he did, that's very cool. I hope he did now. That would be great. Cool. So I'm going to just move this here and I'm going to bring it up as we need it through the show. I'm just keeping an eye on chat from time to time. Okay, cool. So I'm going to play my little piano sketch first. Then we're going to kind of do this as a mock-up. We're not going to do the whole thing in super rich detail. Most of these are only a bar or two, but we're just going to get some idea of how it all sounds. So this is what I got on my little sketch. So John Williams uses triads, as I said, a lot, and sometimes what are known as planing triads, where you may have a kind of root note or a suspended note over which the triads are playing as well. Let me just show you what I mean by triad. So a triad is, let me go up to my sketch piano here. That'll sound better. A triad is essentially usually either a major or a minor chord. It can be a diminished as well, something like this. It can be other things too, but it's essentially three notes that make up the main harmonic weight of a chord. So a note on its own doesn't sound like a chord, it's just a single note, of course. Two notes together are known as a dyad, and this usually gives you enough information as to something about what the chord is going to be like. But the traditional building blocks of chords are triads, three notes, and it's usually the root, the third, and the fifth. Now, we won't go into too much detail. We do this in our course, talk more about how you build chords and what this all means. But generally speaking, the most common ones are going to be major, minor, sometimes diminished, occasionally things like suspended as well. But with those, you can get a lot of different things. And basically, triads, the use of triads and planing triads is using the same pattern and just simply moving it up and down the keyboard in a way that's not necessarily what we call functional. In other words, these chords don't necessarily belong together in any one particular key. You can see I could do a triad made entirely of chromatic, so just go up the keyboard. And this is obviously not a chord sequence of any kind. It's not a diatonic harmony. In other words, it doesn't belong to any particular key, but it still has a really unique and really cool sound. And if I just start playing around with these, I can often find really interesting or I could do something like this. You might know that if you're a fan of Harry Potter. That is just triads. There's a lot in Star Wars. There's a lot in Indiana Jones. It's a very, very common technique for John Williams, and for good reason. It sounds great. If you get horns or trumpets or flutes or pretty much any instrument playing these triads, they sound really good. Now, you can just use triads, or you can sometimes have a kind of pedal note or a suspended note, one note that you play these over. So let's just say we're starting in C. Now if I just play a C in the lower octave, but then continue to play these triads, we're just holding this C and we're just playing a whole bunch of notes, but it actually sounds quite musical and quite cinematic, particularly if it's played in the orchestra, which we're going to do in a minute. So this is a really simple technique, but John Williams uses it all the time and it's worked out quite well for him. It's well worth trying just these techniques. You can do major triads too. So you might know this one. That one's a very common one from Star Wars. That's all just triads. Or again, we can do plain triads. We can hold a chord. So we could do something like, or we could do that minor. Really, really useful technique. You can get so much mileage out of this. Cosmodium said, can it be any triad or should it be a specific distance from one triad to another? Any triads at all. Honestly, you can really just, this is all about feel. There's not really a musical basis for this in terms of there are no right or wrongs. If you're writing diatonically or in a key, there will be some chords that you can use in that key and some chords that you can't if you want to stick to the rules. With this, it's all about feel. So I could take close together. Or I could take really distant stuff. I could also change the inversions of these. We won't go into too much of that today, but in other words, I could keep triads, but I could invert them like this. There's all different ways of doing it, but basically taking the root, the third, and the fifth, and just playing around and finding things that work. And it's all about how it feels. Douglas says, no requirements since they are not function like chords usually do. 100%, Douglas, that's exactly it. This is all about what sounds good to you, what works for you. John Williams has got a lot of mileage out of using these things. Now, obviously, he's a phenomenal orchestrator, composer. He knows his harmony. He comes from a jazz background, so he really understands how all this stuff works. But even if you don't necessarily understand it completely, you can still make it work. Yeah, so we shall now mock something up. And as I showed you, I've already got something here. So I'm just going to take this, what I've got, and I'm going to move it into some different instruments. And then we shall see how it sounds. So let's make something, let's listen to this and think about sort of emotionally what we're going for here. This is obviously not a big action triad thing. This is something a little more understated, kind of mysterious here. Cool. So I'm going to take these notes. As you can see, these are all just the same note here. So we will do something different with these. I'm going to take these and I'm going to think about what instrument to put them in and then get them into some kind of order musically. So copy paste. I've got a few instruments that I think will work together here to make this work. The first thing to do is maybe put them in the flutes. So we got our nucleus flutes here. So if I just start on bar 17 here, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to paste this in, and then we'll start looking at where we want everything to be. So I'm going to line all these up so they work a bit better. Let's just play this on its own. Now you can instantly hear this kind of sounds a bit like John Williams, right? Nice. So I'm going to just move these around, get them where I want them to be. We might have to change some of the length of these because I just played this in really quickly to get an idea in my head that was working. So I'm going to move all this around and then we'll start orchestrating it all. So as you can see, I'm just bringing all this together. Okay, nice. Yep, let's enlarge that. Let's move all these together. Have a listen to what we got here. We might change the length of some of these. Can I increase the volume of the door? Yes, I certainly can. Well, it may just be that this is too quiet. Let's try this. If not, let me just go in and make everything a little bit louder for you guys. That should be pretty simple to do. There we go. That should now be louder. Let me know if it is. Okay, let's just mute this little section here because we don't need it now. And then we will start thinking about a time signature and everything for this little section. We want this a little bit quieter because this is not a full sort of forte thing. Nice. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is come up here and make this a lot slower just at this point here. And I'm probably going to change this to maybe 3/4. And then we can start building this up the way we want it. I think slower than that even. So we're going to go right down to maybe sort of around 62 beats a minute, something like that. See what we think about that. Nice. Okay, and same thing here. So we've got 2 beats and then 1, 2 beats and then 1. Nice, yeah. And then we'll just add some spaces here. We're thinking about where players might breathe, where we might dramatically hold some stuff. Nice, yeah, this sounds good. And then once we've got this main sort of, or the timing's done, it's pretty straightforward from there. Cool, that sounds good to me. Again, a little break there. Nice. Cool. I think we're almost there with this. And then just maybe extend that out. Nice. Cool. Okay, so we have this. Pretty straightforward. Oh, let's just make it a bit louder. Ollie's telling me it's still pretty quiet. I'm not sure why that is, but I can probably get that even louder. Tell me if that's good for you guys. Nice. So that sounds pretty good. Now it's mostly a copy and paste job just to get this sounding pretty good. Next I want to put this on is something with a bit more of a transient texture. So I'm thinking something like the Celeste again from Nucleus. They sound great. This is going to give it a kind of more magical character, a bit more sustain. We want these to be quite nice. Quiet there. One and play it there. So they're just going to give this a little bit more sustain and a bit more transient hit. Nice. That might work better, you know. We'll just see how it goes. We'll leave that there for now. Now, I'm going to show you, this is where things start to come to life, I think. So we have this really nice sort of little chord sequence. Simple, but it really works. What I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of reverb to this. I'm just maybe going to give... This is just going to make it sound a little bit more like it's in this nice big hall, a bit more, I guess, kind of cinematic in a way, and also just going to give us a bit more kind of expansiveness. Nice. Now, here's where we can start to really bring in some tension, because this sounds nice, but it's a little bit basic on its own. Let's take something like a tremolo in, let's do it in the violins. We could do it on the violas or something else. I'm just going to put a key switch in so I can make sure everything's key switching nicely here. Could you show your reverb settings for reference? I certainly can, but they really are just the basic stuff from Valhalla. But I will show you guys in a moment. I definitely will show you. So I'm just going to make sure. So here we go. We're starting here. Maybe a couple of beats before this. I'm just going to bring in something like, let's just see what we're starting on. I've forgotten already, see? So E flat minor, you can see we've got E flat minor. So, oh, I don't want to cancel that. Let me put that there. Let me just show you guys now what I'm thinking of doing here. I'm going to bring, there we go. Let's just try this and see what we think. I'm going to hold these notes. It's just an E flat and a B flat, so the root and the fifth of the E minor. I'm going to hold them all the way through the chords, no matter what the chords do. I'm just going to hold them. I'm going to sort of just bring them in slowly. Nice. Let's just turn them down a bit and then we shall play them. So. Let's really make them quiet. We really just want them just sort of buried there in the background. Nice. And then we end on that G. Cool. So this sounds pretty good. Now, if we want to make this even more dramatic, let's maybe bring in a big bass note, but maybe not a plucked. Although I suppose we could do a pizzicato. Let's just bring in that G. So we have this really interesting thing where we have E flat going on. Let me show you. Bring in my sketch pen. So we have this E flat minor. And then maybe over the top of that, we have these little roots playing here. But maybe have all this over G. Now see how that brings in tension. And again, this is not what we call functional. This is not really about being grounded in harmony. This is a clashing note directly. We have an F sharp here, or a G flat, and a G here. But cinematic music is very often not about harmonic beauty. It's about creating emotion. Sometimes it's not necessarily intuitive how that works harmonically, but I think that this is going to work. And those low basses are going to really give us something to sort of give a sense of depth here. So I'm going to come up here. I'm just going to pop a little key switch in so that we can keep everything key switched. Let's actually, this is our, let me go to our core instead. I think that will be better. So come up here. Let this load. That's not the one. It's all going wrong, guys. There we go. Okay, cool. And I'm just going to bring this in, bring that up, and then make sure that we've got the right notes there. So that's going to be up there. Cool. Now this should start to make things sound pretty dramatic. Okay, and then we're just going to add in a low G and see how it goes. I will be trying to keep up with the chat, guys, as well. First time catching one of these streams live. Big fan. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's great to have people coming in. There we go. Let's get down there and do this. So we're going to have... And we're just going to hold this. Let's just hold it and gradually bring it up in intensity. You know, we're like really ramping up that drama. See what we think and sort of get it to almost kind of where it's getting a bit too loud and then back it off. Nice. So that's cool. Maybe not quite that much, but there we go. Cool. That sounds pretty good to me. I'm just going to change all of this to make sure it's kind of working. Nice. I think we will just do the same thing in the cello as well. That's just going to give us the upper, same bass note, just a G, but it's going to give us the upper octave of that, which just helps to reinforce the bass a bit. Come up here, have a look at this. So yeah, we'll be in the sustained and bring this up. There we go. Just make sure my key switch is activated, otherwise things will get messy. That's going to be Nice. There we go. So those two together will give us a nice, powerful bass. And we could reinforce it if we wanted to with maybe a wood instrument or a brass instrument, maybe a tuba, maybe something like a bass clarinet. We'll see. Nice. So we've instantly created this kind of cinematic section here, really. We could do something just to make it a little bit more textural. Let's just have some fun. Let's put something like a mark tree in here. So I'm just going to find a little kind of flourish. This is just going to give us, again, this magical texture. We've sort of gone a little bit magical, otherworldly here. So I'm just looking for ways to orchestrate this to make it just maybe a little bit more in that sense. Maybe that one there. Let's just try that one. Really quiet though. We don't want this to be in the way. I'm going to put some reverb on and I'll show you the reverb settings Cosmodium. I remember you did ask. And then we shall call this little section a day and we'll move on to the next example. But I think this one's turned out quite nicely for just a few minutes work really. And again, it's all built on the shoulders of giants like John Williams and even further back Stravinsky and all these great classical and symphonic composers that understood earlier on that this stuff just helps to create drama and cinema, and it's emotional, you know, it conjures up these kind of worlds and these feelings in people. So I'm going to just bring that in a bar later so we don't start with it straight away. We hear the flute and the celeste first, then we bring the bass notes in and this really shimmery texture underneath. So here we go. Nice, and that works quite well. So we haven't put much in, and to be honest, I don't think it would necessarily need much more. We could probably maybe embellish it a little bit more if we wanted to, but I don't think that we need to get this example across. We've got these really simple strings, these high strings here, which were just providing an upper sort of texture, consistency here. Getting ET vibes, love it. Thank you so much. Why would you bring that, not bring that G note in a bit behind? You could if you wanted to. There's really no reason other than this is just what sounded good to me. I liked having the start with the strings. Then we have our first note. But hey, let's just try it. Let's just take it one back and see what we think. Works fine. Or we could do something different and take it and start at a bar later and start it much later. All would be fine, but because I'm hearing this kind of slightly syncopated one, bum, dun, 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 this kind of thing, that's where I thought it should start. But there's no reason for that. That's just my personal thing. It sounded good to me. Someone else may want to start it earlier. Some may start it later. That's really down to, as you guys as composers, whatever works for you. But as a technique-wise, this technique is really worth exploring. Triads. Very, very simple stuff. As I said, it's all based on that root third and fifth. Could be major, could be minor. There's no specific way to do this stuff. If it sounds good to you, it works. Maybe try different pedal notes. We could have tried something different, like a C sharp. And someone like John Williams may even start something. And then may go to here. Who knows? There's all different ways of doing this. And if we had time, we could extend it out into a whole piece that built up and had more and more kind of tension as we were going through, if that's what we wanted. But as a basic technique, this is well worth exploring. Just taking simple shapes and literally the exact same shape up and down the keyboard, but finding something that works and just orchestrating it in a way that works for you. So... that kind of works. We've already built like a little underscore bit. This could be, you know, Indy going into the cave, or it could be landing on an alien planet in Star Wars and exploring the caves or something. There's much different ways that you could think about it, but yeah, that's a technique that's well worth trying. John Williams has used it lots in his scores to great effect, and it's a really, really fun, interesting one. So that's the first one that we're going to look at today. Pretty straightforward, but good fun. The next thing we're going to look at is now a little bit kind of complicated to wrap your head around. And it does take some practice. This is not something you can learn overnight, but it's something that you might call contrapuntalism or counterpoint. It's about basically having lines that play off each other, that in some ways imitate each other, but in other ways have slight differences, but creating, and I think this is the most important thing that I'm trying to get across here, creating dynamics and creating changing rhythmic patterns. John Williams does this all the time in Star Wars to great effect. We're going to have a look at a Star Wars example here. Really simple one, but so good. And it's just a great example of how he uses dynamic changes, how he uses different parts of the orchestra, and you can hear something starts here and then it's imitated but changed in a different section, then it's moved across to this section. We're going to look at a short section of it, and we're also going to talk a little bit about something called leitmotif, which is attached to this as well. Leitmotif appears everywhere in John Williams music and many other composers. This will cover both. So I'm going to show you our example here. This is from a way back when score, Star Wars score, the very first one, A New Hope. This is a little section from a piece called The Battle of Yavin. Thanks, Peter. Glad you liked it. Yeah, I think it works really well. I'm going to show you the sketch first, then we're going to orchestrate it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on here. We're not going to analyze it too much theoretically because we could get in the weeds, but we're going to talk about the principle of what's going on here. And it's not something you hear as much as you used to in modern music, but it's well worth knowing and understanding. So here's our section. Let me very quickly get this up to speed because we changed our speed. We do not want it to be that speed. That's definitely okay. So we're going to get up to about here. Sounds a bit weird, right? If you heard that on a piano, you may think it's okay, you know, it's not too bad, but it sounds a bit weird. When we orchestrate it, you're going to really see how this works. And it's such a great little line. Expect to counterpoint today. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get too advanced counterpoint, but we're just going to talk about the principle of a lot of music these days is quite monophonic. You may have a bass line, you may have one melody, you may have some chords or pads. Sounds beautiful, sounds textural. I'm a fan of that kind of stuff. But I really love, as an old guy who used to love old scores, I really love contrapuntalism or the use of imitative textures, the use of just moving around the orchestra and you know, feeding one line off another line. It's great. This little section is great. I'll show you why I love this section, right? Here's John Williams. Here's just where he's a genius in a way that you might not realize. First thing to say is, do you recognize anything about this, in particular the top line? Do you hear anything in this? Just that section there. Does anybody hear something in that maybe they wouldn't have expected to hear? It's a line from Star Wars. Does anybody know? Use the fugue. The question is, what doors are we all in? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, tell us what doors you're in, guys. I'd love to know. I'm going to show you something that I really love about this. So I'm going to just block these out and make this clearer. Maybe you guys will now hear what this is. Did you hear that? We all know that line. That's the fourth theme, right? But it's played differently here. So first thing to talk about is something called leitmotif, something that John Williams does all the time. It happens with lots of other composers as well, of course. It's a very well tried and tested technique. But taking themes and weaving them into cues, weaving them into ideas in ways that you might not automatically hear the first time round. When you hear this piece, you might not consciously hear the fourth theme, particularly if you're not a musician. If I was just watching this in the cinema when I was a kid, I would never have heard this and known what it was. But it's there. And I've heard this before as the beautiful binary sunset theme. And now in the Battle of Yavin, and I don't want to ruin Star Wars for you guys, but I'm sure most of you have seen it. This is the moment when Luke is finally, you know, having to wrestle. He's in this big space battle. He's going to have to use the Force soon. He's going to have to believe that he's a Jedi and that he has these powers. So what's John Williams doing? It's an absolutely stunning idea. He's just taking this Force theme, this sort of heroic theme, and he's weaving it into the action music in a way that you might not first understand or really hear clearly, but he's preparing you for for hearing it later on and really feeling that the whole thing is connected. I just love this. This is called Leitmotif. It's a German word. It's based on that idea of these little motivic ideas, these little themes or little sections of melodies that you can use in different ways. One minute they may be action-packed, next minute they may be dark, next minute they may be romantic, but you can always find ways to bring them in and create a thematic unity in the music, even at the most unexpected places. You know, this is the theme that we hear here on the French horn in Star Wars, but here we have it, full trumpets blaring. I see you guys talking about doors there. I will leave you carry on talking about doors while I just do my bit here. So, okay, let's talk first of all about how we're going to put this all together. I'm going to take this line. Cool. This is where the magic happens. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it in the trumpets, which is where John Williams puts it. I'm going to use nucleus, sounds great. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. It shouldn't take too long. This is all just done on brass as well. This is what's great. This is quite a sparse moment, but because it's brass, huge, big fanfare, we'll put some reverb on. It's going to sound great. So let's take a little look. Let's maybe try, these are actually our Jaeger trumpets. I've lied, but I think they'll actually work a bit better. Maybe the portato might work. If not, we can key switch between some stuff to get this right. Let's see if our portato gives us anything that we want here. Okay, let's see. Now, apologies if this is now too loud for you guys. I will turn it down a little bit. This may be a section that doesn't need quite as much gain. Nice. I think that all works there. Maybe we will go back to our staccatismo for that little section there. And then just at this moment, bring it back to portato. Nice. And I think just for that section there. So portato is just this quite firm sustain, you know, and then that's being combined. Nice. Okay. We just need to make a little bit of a gap here. Make sure that's actually staccato. Nice. Okay, that's coming together. We're going to take these, make these. We can make that a bit shorter. These are. Nice. And maybe we will make that one staccato as well. I'm just doing a little bit of MIDI programming here to just bring the best out of these. No, I think we'll keep that portato, but we will just shorten it just to give it a bit more of a crispness. Nice, that sounds good. Potato, tomato. Yeah, exactly. You say potato, I say tomato, you say potato. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, it's true. Potato, tomato. Nice, this is already sounding good. Jaeger, nucleus just sound great for this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to put a little bit of reverb on these as well. Again, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll show you the reverb in a second. I remember I did tell you guys. Just going to help put it in a bit of a bigger room without draining it out. See, we got a little bit of reverb there. Now, next thing to do is take this. These are going to be the lines in the trombones. And then we will analyze it and have a little look at sort of what's going on here. But you can probably already tell kind of what's going on here. We have counterpoint, imitative stuff. The same sort of notes are going on, the same patterns. You can see this dum 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 dum, this kind of constant 16th notes going on. But then we also have this theme in here as well. So it's kind of interesting. Let's just copy this into the trombones. And then we shall start to hear how this is all coming together. So here are our trombones. I use our Jaeger trombones again. Let's just make sure we get this in the right place. So let's start there. At this point, we can begin to take off our sketch piano, do the same reverb here, just to put them in the same space. Maybe have the guys. I'd also love to see any trailer music content too. Always fun stuff. A Jaeger trumpet, same as nucleus, or different articulations? They're the same but expanded essentially. So there's a few more articulations in Jaeger than nucleus, but it's essentially the same thing. Nucleus is like a pared down version, and Jaeger's a bit more sort of geared towards the kind of big, brash, epic stuff. Nice, cool. Now we do a little bit of massaging here, just to make this sound the way we want it to. So let's have a look what we've got going on here. We go down C-1. There we go. Okay, so let's just see if we can make all this work the way we want it to. Nice. And we just need to bring them back all the way to here, and this last note we will make sustained again. And there we go, with simple key switching, just sustain and staccatissimo, both of which are in nucleus, so we're not using anything that we wouldn't find in nucleus here. We've got quite a nice sounding line. Sounds great to me. I mean, and I love the kind of space here, right? It sounds huge, and it sounds sort of action-packed already, but there's just two lines. There's no massive strings, there's no big pads, there's no mega horns or anything that we use in modern day stuff. Just two lines. Do you normally add additional reverb when working nucleus Jaeger, or is it enough to add more reverb in the classic modern mix? You can totally use the classic modern mix. They sound great. The reverbs inbuilt sound absolutely brilliant in nucleus and Jaeger. The only reason I use outboard reverb or plugins is just twofold. Number one, I got used to it over the years when I was working as a composer. It was just easier to sort of have everything going through outboard reverb. Number two, it makes it a bit easier to change. So for example, usually I have all my trombones, let's say, going to a trombone bus, and I can add reverb there. And then if I change the reverb settings for one, everybody else's reverb settings gets changed at the same time. Whereas if I was going in to multiple different patches, I'd have to, each time I wanted to change the brass, go into each brass instrument and change the reverb settings. So I personally like to work this way. The reverb in nucleus sounds amazing. I think we talked about this on a previous stream. It sounds great. I love it. It's just from my workflow perspective. And I think most composers eventually, even if they use the inbuilt reverb on instruments, they like to have their own reverb setups in some way. Just makes things a bit more flexible. But it's not necessarily because Valhalla reverb gives me something that the nucleus reverb doesn't. It's just that that's the one I use. That's how my big template set up when I'm working. What is generally decision for wood brass instruments? How many bars continuity is realistic? That's a really good question. It depends a lot on the type of lines. For example, these kind of lines, brass could play for quite a long time in theory because there's enough breaks to get breaths in. You can see if a player was playing this line, you could take a little break here, just on this long note, and then just before we start this little section here, you could take a little breath. And then another little breath here. So you could play a line like this for a long time. If you were asking trombonists to play chords like this, you might have to give them more breaks, or you might have to not go too long before eventually, they have to sort of take a break. But with things that have lots of small breaks like this, you will eventually have to get them to have a little break. You can't play like this for minutes and minutes at a time. But good brass players could go on for quite a while playing at this kind of pace and these kind of rhythms with just a few small breaks here and there to take a quick breath before they go on to the next section. Is there any world in which we could get the nucleus reverb as a separate plugin so we can do it across multiple instruments? Well, I don't know personally, but we always appreciate sort of comments and feedback, because if there is a way and it's something that people want, we always like to know what we could do to give you guys what you want and need. So I can't promise anything, but what's great about these streams is if you tell us, what you need, what you like, what you want more of, we listen, we take it all on board, because at the end of the day, we're keen to make instruments for composers. We're keen to give you guys the tools you need to compose and do all the brilliant stuff you're capable of doing. So yes, we will take on board what you've said. I don't know whether the answer will be yes or no, but we will certainly listen, and we discuss all that stuff as a team about how we're going to take things forward. I love this idea going on the idea sheet. There we go. I mean, Ollie's taking it. So yeah. My rule of thumb is just try and hold my breath as long as the notes go. Yeah, that's also true as well. That would be amazing. Thanks. No problem. No, we really appreciate suggestions, ideas. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Cool. Let's just put this final part in here. Let's go back, listen to this final part, which is going to be on our horns, and then we'll listen to the little section here, what we have. So we have a really interesting moment here that we got to program on our horns and do the rest of the trombones as well. Then you'll really hear how everything comes to life. So same thing with horns here, nice and simple. We'll use our 6 horns nucleus. That's going to be pretty much do the job. And this can all be staccatissimo because as you can see, they're all short notes. So nice and simple. Let's get down to our staccatissimo. There it is. Cool. And I haven't even done any programming of velocity here. I could make these a little bit more realistic sounding. I'm really noticing how nucleus sounds a lot like the original Star Wars score, which is a little bit more direct. I love the sound of it. The brass sound incredible in the original Star Wars score. They are so intense, you know, it's like fizzy. It's almost like distorted guitar in a good way, you know. So yeah, it's kind of cool that as I'm writing this in, I'm like, nucleus is doing a very, very good job at translating this. So let me just have a quick listen to how this goes again. We just want to make sure that that note there is on our trombone as well. So yeah, we've got a little bit more work to do with our trombones here. And then we will have the whole section. We can talk a little bit about what we've done. And then we will move on to our next section, which I think we'll do is harmony. John Williams and harmony are a match made in heaven. So cool. So we're going to want this here, and then we're going to want this here. And now this should all sound pretty much done as a little brass fanfare with contrapuntal textures here. And then we'll talk a bit about what's going on. Oh, we just have to make sure I know what's going on here. We need to increase our range a little bit. This is quite high for the trombones. So we just increase our range. Nucleus and Jaeger can handle this. There it is. And then we just put that there. Make sure the range is increased for that too. Then we'll get a nice big note at the end. There it is. Cool. Let's have a listen to that again, and then we'll talk it through. So in this example, what is the anchoring line? What is the glue to the counterpoint? I will show you how this all works now. That's a very good question. There we go. Really nice little fanfare. So the anchoring line is without a doubt these trumpets. These trumpets are playing our melody, and everything is built off the trumpets. So the trumpets are a rhythmic version of the 4th stream. This is all we've got. So that's our 4th theme with a slightly different, more strident, clipped rhythmic sort of sensibility going on. So whereas the original 4th theme is, John Williams has decided this is an action theme. It needs to be a bit more direct, a bit more intense. And what he's done is in putting that little section together, he's heard these 2 notes and these 2. Bum, 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 bum. And then he's built the rest of what's going on off the back of that. So all this really is the rest of it supported by multiple versions of these 2 little notes. And then these. Everything else is just that. That's really all that's going on with these held notes occasionally in the trombones. So you can hear it's just bum, 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 bum. So it's kind of imitating. It's not direct counterpoint. Counterpoint's a very complicated classical technique. We're not going to go into that today. But counterpoint is the idea of one line imitating but doing something different to another line, but in quite strict rules. John Williams and a lot of composers have taken those rules, relaxed those rules, but used the same basic idea that one line supports another line. So it's similar, but it's different enough that you hear different elements. Hey, no problems, no problem at all. Thanks for coming. Lots of discussions going on about plugins and ideas and stuff, which is very cool. Ollie's to build more strings could cover chords and texture if you wanted to. Yeah, as this piece goes on, if you want to listen to this, type in Battle of Yavin on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. Listen to this piece. It's an 8-minute long scoring masterclass, this piece. This little moment here is just brass. Everything cuts out. You get a big timpani roll, and then you get a big crash of the piatti, the cymbals, and then everything dies out, and then you get this little section here. If you've ever seen the film, all the X-Wings are kind of like descending onto the Death Star. It's a really exciting moment. It's like, here we go. You know, everything's about to start. And John Williams does this brilliant thing. Rather than going more intense, he pulls back. He has all these percussion and string stuff. And then when we get to this moment, everything strips out and we just get this brass fanfare. And of course, Star Wars and brass fanfares go hand in hand. So he's taken the fourth theme. And then let's talk a little bit about the sort of harmonic stuff that's going on here. So he's got the fourth theme. Let's bring this up in G minor. Here we go. There we go. Let's have a look at what he's doing in the trombones here. And we can just analyze all the notes here. There's not many of them. We have G, C. So that's our fourth theme again. Here's another interesting thing. That's where the counterpoint begins. This starts in the trumpets with... We've heard that. What do we get in the trombones next? A faster version of the same thing. Exactly the same notes. Just G and C. What other notes do we have? So there's G, C, G and C again, F, C, G, C, G, F. 3 notes. C, G, and F. Now, in terms of harmony, that's a C suspended fourth over the C minor. So we have... That's all it is. It's adding this suspension. It's creating this sense of tension. It's not resolved. It's not major. You could do something like that, or you could do it minor. But that sounds a bit too intense, maybe a bit too dramatic, a bit too, for later on. The suspension doesn't let us know what key we're in. So it creates this sense of tension there. And that's really all that's going on in this piece. And then we have the exact same thing going on in the horns. We have this little section here. And then later on, in a slightly different key, pretty much the same thing. It goes from, let me just show you guys again. It goes from the C suspension to the D suspension. That's all that's happening as we're going up from a C. And then we have this suspension with the F over the top there. So we're just going from C to D essentially with these interesting rhythmic counterpoints. But it's a really beautiful way of introducing more and more textures. And then as this goes on, as you said earlier on, the strings and everything else comes in and it roars into this big climactic section. The last battle from Star Wars: A New Hope, yeah. Can you name the cue in the chat? I can. It's Battle of Yavin, it's called. So if you type in Battle of Yavin, Y-A-V-I-N, it's a really, really great piece of music. It's about 8.5 minutes. It's the big battle at the end of Star Wars. And it's just a genius piece of music on its own. It's also a genius way of how to score a film. The whole thing leads up, because really John Williams is so good at realizing this is all about Luke, and this is all about Luke's journey to the Force. That's really what the original Star Wars film is about. He's a farm boy. He doesn't know he has these powers. Then he doesn't believe it. He's not sure if it's true. He's not sure if he's really got all of this stuff, but he's destined to be this kind of great character. And the end of Star Wars is really just him, or Star Wars: A New Hope, him discovering that. And this is John Williams foreshadowing with leitmotifs here. He's using the Force theme to say this guy does have the Force, and he's just beginning to understand that. So yeah. Then we have these beautiful little rhythmic sections, which on their own don't sound that great. Really nice, simple stuff, but it's all just essentially broken chords, these suspension chords. I have to hop off again. Love being able to catch up. Hey, no problem. Thanks for joining us. And this will all be available on YouTube to watch whenever you want. Yeah, this is great. So yeah, this is... Counterpoint's complicated. It's not something we're going to explain in an afternoon, but it is worth... I think the thing I really want to get across here is that John Williams knows when to let music breathe. Modern music has less breathing room. Generally speaking, the textures are more homophonic. In other words, they're more simplistic generally, and they're usually a lot bigger and thicker. And it works so well. I mean, it creates these incredible atmospheres and ambiances, but I think it's a really good idea sometimes to let things breathe, to have space between notes, to have one instrument over here, like our trumpets, playing with another instrument over here, like our horns. In the orchestra, the horns would be over here on the left if you're looking at them as a conductor, and the trumpets would be over here on the right. And so when you listen to this piece, you'll really hear that the trumpets are here and the horns are here, and everything is dancing about. That's what's so amazing about this. It's not homophonic. It's not all in the center, sort of playing at full pelt. You have the trumpets here, then the trombones over here as well, but then the horns come in here, then the strings here at the front come in. It's just such a masterfully put together piece. And I really encourage you to experiment with this stuff. Try and find the theme and then think about how you could add imitative but not identical textures done artfully in a way that can create this sense of movement, propulsion, but also space as well. And so that not everything is just big notes playing at you at the same time. Yeah, so that was a little introduction to the idea of contrapuntal music or imitative textures. We're certainly not going to cover it all in glorious detail today, but I think it's well worth trying if you're writing music and you've never really tried anything like this before. You're just using big block chords, or you're looking for ways to make the music more interesting. Just take a little section like this. You can watch this back, and this is not my music, of course. This is John Williams, so I'm not taking any credit, but it's a great way of just using simple techniques to create rhythmic variants, to create melodic variants, and to let instruments breathe and dance off each other, which is the original sort of joy of orchestral music. And yeah, that goes on, great fanfare, and then everything else comes in. It's really cool. Okay, shall we move on to something different? Maybe we should talk about harmony. So John Williams is a master of harmony, particularly a master of what we might call extended harmony. Now, what do we mean when we say extended harmony? Well, we were talking about triads earlier on, and without going into too much detail, a chord is usually made up, a basic chord of 3 notes, a root, third, and fifth. Let's just get our piano back up again, and then we can hear it, a root, third, and fifth. So C major is a C, an E, and a G. It's our root, skip the second, go to the third, skip the fourth, go to the fifth. We talk about this in our Modern Composer Blueprint a lot. We go into a lot more detail. We won't go into it too much today, but here's the idea. You can make most chords in simple harmony using root, third, and fifth. Really nice, simple melody. Those melodies, those basic sort of harmonic principles can be used to create so much music, a lot of modern and sort of past rock. A lot of simple classical music has been built predominantly on just simple minors. Oh, let's just play properly. You can make so much music with this, but obviously as music developed, a lot of early music was just based on these triads and these simple sort of 3-note chord sequences. But as time went on, people began to realize, hey, you can add more notes. And it sounds great. And you can see we've gone to what's called a C13th here, because we've added the root, the root, the third, the fifth, the 7th, the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th. We stacked this huge chord here. It sounds great. Extended harmony opens up the world of harmony available to us. So something like this could now become, or if you wanted to, see how we're using the same basic building block. It's just the same C to F to C, but by adding these extended harmonies, we're building these increasingly complex chords. This is at the heart of John Williams's music. A lot of his music is built on simple chord sequences. When you just break them down to their bare essentials, they're simple. But the use of these extensions and the use of adding more chord tones to the chords really, really brings them to life. I'm going to show you a really short sequence that I've created, and then we're going to do this. We're going to sort of take it, make it simple, then we're going to make it more complex, see if we can get something good here. Now, I haven't planned this out completely, got a rough idea how it's going to go, but this is part of the fun, right? We could crash and burn, but I think it's going to work out okay. So we're going to start out with this. Here's our sketch piano. That's That's a really, really simple melody there. I'm going to copy this over to, let's say 1 second. I'm just going to do a little bit of housework here. I'm going to make that back to 4/4. There we should be in 4/4. There we go. I think that speed's going to be fine. I'm just going to do this, copy it over to Dolce. I'm going to use Dolce. Dolce is our beautiful romantic chamber strings library. It's one of my favorite libraries of ours. I use it a lot. Sounds great. Just extend these across. This is going to give us the legato, make sure it's all triggered. And then I'm just going to use a bit of modulation here. Nice. I can use a function that we have called rebo here, using the sustain pedals, just to make sure. I'm making a complete mess of this here, but that's okay. There we go. We want to do that. God, look at this. This is me. Cubase have changed this, I think, and I just can't get on board with it, but I will eventually. There we go. So let's just bring that up there. Cool. God, look how messy this is, but that's okay. And we're going to want one more there. This is basically just using a rebo technique on these notes. So it's as if these notes are being played reboed like this. So you can have the same note, but still keep it kind of legato. Tom is trying to get me to move to Logic. It's never going to happen. We've had fights about this. We've done some challenges recently as well. If you haven't watched our Composer Challenge, make sure you watch it. It was us using Logic. Logic was so good that, well, watch the challenge. You'll see. I was vindicated. I feel vindicated based on that challenge. I was led to believe Logic was solid, stable, nothing ever goes wrong. It's Cubase that's always causing issues. That was not the case. I'm sticking with Cubase, but Tom's a Logic man. He's very, very good at using Logic. We're always going to have this battle. This is like Battle of the Heroes, right? Battle of the Doors. Maybe we should make a Star Wars piece called Battle of the Doors. It's like Duel of the Fates, but Cubase and Logic, or Studio One, or Bitwig, or whatever you use. Okay, so we've taken this theme. Really simple line, not the most exciting line, but we can probably make it more exciting. So how do we do this? Let's think about this. Let's build a chord sequence here. I'm going to do it in the sketch piano first, and then we're going to move this over to our instruments, and we're going to see how it works. I'm going to start with just triads. I'm going to find some triads, and this is probably going to sound a bit weird. I think I'm going to start off in B flat, I think. So let's just put these triads in. And this is the interesting thing, and John Williams is so good. If you ever study John Williams, if you're ever mocking up his music, sometimes you'll write something in and you'll go, oh, that doesn't sound very good. That sounds a bit weird. And then you write the next note in and you go, oh, okay. Then you write the next note in and you go, oh, okay, I understand how all these things work together. So I've got maybe a sequence like this. I think something like that. And then I think maybe I've got this idea of like a B flat here. I always knew I was going to start with B flat and then go to a D major. Now again, these are non-functional chords. In other words, this is not based on a key. This is all based on feeling, emotion, but then using some basic harmonic tools to make it sound kind of good. So I've got a B flat. Let me bring this up to a D, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I think either C or something. That sounds weird, right? But I've got an idea there, I think. And then something like okay, so I know that this is going to be a big B major chord here. So see how that ends nicely. So we got these three chords here: B flat major, D major, something here. Now I've got an idea. We haven't talked about polychords yet, but I think I've got an idea to use a polychord here. Polychords are two chords over the top of each other. We'll explore them in more detail soon. But I've got this C. I love this chord with an F sharp over the top. Sounds great, right? Sounds a bit weird, but it can resolve to some really nice places. So I think I'm going to use, because we've got, the reason I thought this is we've got these pretty much the F sharp there, and I'm looking to continue notes. So something like this maybe. I don't know exactly how we're going to do this here. We need a suspension there. We need to hold that over. See how that just sounds better than just going straight to the B flat. So now we're starting to build this up. We've just got triads pretty much. These are our triads. Something like that maybe. So this is a kind of half diminished chord here, I think. Nice. So now we can begin to build this up, and then we can begin to add extended harmony. This is getting a bit extended, but it's still a long way. It sounds a bit clunky on the piano, but I think on strings, it's going to work. So first thing to do is just put this in the bass. I always like to start with the melody and the bass, and then we can fill in the bits and pieces then. So here's our bass. Let's make sure we have some. Cool. Bring them down. It might help we get some sound by actually having the bass on. Okay, so I think we maybe want our bass there. I'm not sure. We're going to continue and see how we get. So nice. Bring that down a bit in intensity. And then listen to what we have here. Nice. That sounds a bit weird, but I think it's going to work. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So what we're doing here is we've taken a really simple descending figure. Let me just play this on the piano. Then we've taken some triads. And then we've got this F sharp essentially. I'll play up here. Then down to a diminish. And then so we can build all this around just triads. We basically got the B flat, the D, we've got the F sharp, down to the diminished, and then we have that, which is going to be our final B there. But then we can add more tones to this, and that's what I really want to show you. So let's start getting all this in. We can now probably take this piano away. Sounds a bit weird without everything else, but I think as we add stuff in, you're going to hear that this starts to come together. Okay, so maybe I will use the sustain patches here rather than, so I'm probably going to want to divide these cellos and violas and make them richer. Okay, so let's carry this on. I see quite a lot of you with me here today. I hope you're all enjoying it. So I'm not going to worry too much about orchestrating this perfectly, but we're going to get enough in that we get an idea. All I'm doing is keeping tones where possible. So we have this B flat. There we go. Sounds nice. That's all we're doing here. So I'm just going to fill these chords in, and then we'll think about how we sort of put it all together and finalize it. Make sure that's... Yeah, I think something like that works. Hello again. Thanks for the streams, by the way. No problem. Thank you for joining us. I really, really appreciate everyone joining us. It's always great fun. So we've been building this community for a while. Next week, we're going to be over on our big audio Imperia channel. That's where we're going to be from now on. I wonder if this... No, I think it works better there. See how we're starting to build these textures in that? It sounds really nice now. Then we can just hold that over. Nice. Little gap there, just... I'm not sure whether we're going to have our suspension there. Could work. I think so. Just put the 5th there, see if that works. Nah. Yep. Cool. And again, we've not really done any mini programming today. I've just put a basic modulation in just to get it roughly where we want it to be, but we could be making this more flowing. We could be playing it in a way that makes it more fluid, but we're not worried about that today. We're talking techniques. And I might recap all of today. He's gone through near the end of the stream. Yes, I will definitely recap. And if anybody wants anything explained or wants to, more examples, we might have time to do them. Nice. Okay. Now we shall put some more chords in the violin, or more notes in the violin to fill out our chord. And then we'll talk about how we're extending these harmonies. That's going to be the next step. So what we've got so far is kind of the outline of these chords. If I just put these together and show you. So Cosmodium was saying, when composers have issues with legato, particularly at the start of the legato melody or when there is a long break between two parts of melodies, do you know why it sounds weird? Can you explain exactly how it sounds weird? Sometimes legato has a bit of a soft attack. So sometimes what you might want to do is change your sustain patch, or if you have a patch like a marcato patch, something like that could work as well. I notice that sometimes because of the way legatos are programmed and they're quite tricky to do, sometimes a legato can miss a bit of an attack. So if you really want to hit the first note with a bit more attack, what I like to do is sometimes layer the legato with another patch. It might be a staccato patch, it might be a marcato patch, but something with a bit more attack, and that can just help the phrase start again. Legato patches sound amazing when they're doing all the flowing stuff, but I sometimes they can be a little bit tricky to get something going, or to have a break of a few milliseconds or a second or so and then start again. So sometimes I layer things up to get things working. That can work quite well. I think bring this down. Nice, we're building it. Again, going back to leitmotifs, this is not contrapuntalism or anything, but this is almost, we're using that same descending. That's what we came up with, and we're using these same descending ideas here. Okay, let's start filling this in. And then we will talk about extending the harmony. So where do we get up to in terms of pitches here? So we're up here. Okay, now let's start thinking about what we can do. We know that we have, let me just go back to our sketch piano. That will be easier to play this on. We have our sketch piano here. So we have the first two chords are B flat to D major. They sound fine, but they kind of sound clunky. But watch, if we add tones, we were talking about the root, the third, the fifth, and then generally speaking, tones are added in sequences of steps. So step, 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 and then another step, another step. So we could add, to make this a major seventh. And that works quite nicely. We could maybe even do this. That sounds quite nice. So what can we do here? We know we got the B flat, And then we know we've got this D major. Well, let's maybe add the 7th, the major 7th. And then maybe we do this. Now we've got the major 7th in the D major. For some reason, this sounds a bit clunky, but this, because of the dominance of this 7th here and the way we've added these 7ths, this now sounds a bit more fluid to me, particularly if I do this kind of thing and start, instead of moving that note there, we put it down the bottom and we start moving notes as little as possible. We've talked about this in voicing. But we can maybe start looking at doing some voicing. We could even add, if I play it properly. So that's quite nice. We've got this 9th here. We've got 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. And then we go to a D major 7th. Do you see how going from that creates like a kind of harmony and a melody all of its own? And this is the beauty of extended harmony. We've taken, which sounds okay, and now we've created, and we could do more. We could add this 11th, or it's a sharpened 11th technically, and then we hold that for the next and create a major 9th there. So now has become beautiful. Sounds much more coherent, and then with the melody, that's really going to sound nice, I think. So let's start trying to add these 7ths and 9ths and things in. Not sure exactly how or where yet, but as we move along. So yeah, we could maybe have okay, let's try this. So we could hold this A, because the A is the 7th, the major 7th in the B flat, and then the 5th in the D. And then we have this 9th, the C, the 9th, and then going up to the major 7th of the D. Let's see how we think this works. See if this makes things sound interesting. Nice, yeah, I think that kind of works. We can always change it if we don't like it. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we can extend these harmonies out and see how they all work together. But yeah, this is starting to come together nicely, I think. Let's build the rest of this in, and then we can move things around. I'm still trying to keep up with the chat, and I know Tom and Ollie are in there as well, so hopefully you're all having a good chat there. Now we have this F sharp over C. Nice. Now see how we're starting to build this like more complex, beautiful. I'm just going to hold this as a note. It'll sound a bit better. And then we're just going to follow the melody there. Okay. Cool. Now we're starting to really add some complexity here. Now, I'm not sure about this beginning. What I think we want to do is almost this, ramp this in here. So this is where we're just using sometimes extended harmony of 4, 5, 6 notes. Sometimes we're just using the triads or just maybe 4 notes. Now maybe we could try this. Maybe it works. No, I think we want to go down. I think we do want to go down there. I think that works nice. Cool. And these violins and violas and things can sometimes divide in 2 or 3. We'll talk about that maybe in another sort of stream at some point, but this is very common when you've got rich, beautiful writing. Dividing into 2 or 3 parts here is quite common. So this could happen. Nice. So this is starting to sound quite rich and quite nice. It's a very, very simple line. Oh, we appear to maybe, oh, there we go. I may have a small mouse issue here. I'm not sure. Yes, I think possibly my mouse has died. Let's see if we can fix that somehow. Technical errors. Let's see if I can get some kind of juice to my mouse here or find another mouse. This is where live shows go wrong. I'm sure I do have another mouse thing here. So let's see if I can get that working. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Talk amongst yourself. Okay, let's see if we can get this working. Otherwise, we could be in trouble, but I think this should work fine. This is the problem with having wireless technology. See, it goes wrong. Just move that right there. 1 second. Oh, Tom's got a new video coming, apparently. Are we going to get this working? Let's see. Hopefully. There we go. Wow. Okay. Tom took Jerry the mouse. He did. Do you know, I'm always charging this mouse religiously, and then for some reason I've forgotten. But now it's charging. Virtue of I don't know if you can. You probably can't see the extension lead here. Okay. I feel your pain with the wireless mouse. I like good old-fashioned, you know, I'm from the days when your mouse would just be a big, horrible, clunky, rollerball thing, and it got dust in it all the time, and I loved it. Cleaning the mouse out was an interesting experience. But anyway, okay, let's now maybe add some more notes here. Let's see what we think. Let's try. So we have this B flat. Let's go back up to our piano. We had our B flat. We've added these. Maybe we could add this. That might work, I think. So now we're just adding this B flat's becoming a B flat major 11th, essentially. And then to this D major 9th. And then maybe we could go to this kind of really complicated C with F sharp 7th. And then maybe... Beautiful. So we're really just holding this E note over everything, but it's extending each chord in its own way. Sometimes it's the 7th of the chord, the 9th, the 13th of the chord, but just taking the same basic chord sequence. Maybe we can just make this literally just one note. Let's try it. There it is. Those mice with the rubber ball in the middle, right? Yeah. If you guys, maybe probably a lot of you won't remember because we're really old now, but we used to have like mice with like a big rubber ball in the middle. And sometimes your mouse would break and the little clip would come off and the ball wouldn't stay in, and it was horrendous, but also kind of fun. And then the ball would just get loads of lint and dust in it. It was pretty messy times, but good times. Let's just try and hold this E through the whole thing, apart from the very end, because this might work. Let's try. Nice, and then just have this at the very end. Do you guys ever remember these mouse balls? Hello, good old days. Hey, Agent Smith, how you doing? So I'm not sure this note works, but I think we could move it up like this. There's different ways that we could do it. Or maybe we could go up, maybe we could have this ascending now. Oh my God, Agent Smith is here. Where's Neo when you need him? Do you know, I had that horrible moment where I thought the whole OBS had crashed and I was like, my computer's just crashed, nothing's working. But it was just a mouse. Maybe this works. Oh, maybe this could work. I think I like that. It's a clash. So now we're adding to this final chord. We have, let's go back again. So maybe we're going to have this final chord almost like a diminished with this G. And it works because, again, everything's about resolution here. So it's a really clashing note, but it adds this beautiful tension that we can resolve. And if you've been in our stream before, harmony is all about tension and release. Really and truly, there are no rules with harmony. You can go all into the weeds with harmony in terms of diatonic harmony, non-diatonic harmony, chromatic harmony, circles of fifths, and these kinds of different things. But truthfully, everything is about tension and release and about resolution. If you can find even the most disgusting chords, you know, but you can resolve them in different ways, everything can work. So the more you practice with tension and resolution of individual lines working together to create chords, the more you can create really complex chords. A lot of John Williams' harmony is incredibly complex, but it's actually not really based on literal harmonic rules. It's just based on him being such a brilliant jazz composer and understanding everything can clash as long as at some point it resolves or moves in a way that gets you to the next place and makes it feel good. Wagnerian resolution, yeah, I mean, this is it, right? There are no mistakes in music. There are only happy accidents. And if you understand where notes should go to make them feel tense and then resolve them, you can just stack things up. Sometimes, you know, this is why jazz pianists and musicians are great. They can just play all night in jazz clubs, playing all kinds of different notes. One note doesn't work, but then in the next chord, they'll make it work because they'll play something that they know gets them to that point. You've probably seen these memes all the time where someone plays a chord and everybody goes, ugh, and then the next chord and everybody goes, ah, and that's harmony in a nutshell. You find ways to create tension or create ugliness and then beauty out of that ugliness. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. I mean, this is a very simple version of it, but that's kind of what we're doing here. We have a moment of ugliness here, and I'm going to just ramp this up in our mod wheel so that we get a little bit more out of it and then bring it down so you can hear this a bit more clearly now. Now I'm starting to think about movement. Maybe we could do this. This might not work at all, but let's just try it. That definitely doesn't work. There's tension, then there's too much tension. That's just ugly. I think that works better though, having a little hold on that note, so we're not adding the complexity until later. And then bringing this in. Nice. Agent Smith, I was going to say Agent Melody then. Maybe that should be named Agent Melody. Agent Smith makes a great point. Yeah, it's all, we can think of it as all individual melodies. So we have this melody. Then we have this melody over the top of it. All right, let's play that alongside there. Nice. Then we have these melodies. Let's just listen to this. This is almost two melodies on its own. Simple melodies, but still. Charles Ives, yes. We're going to do Polychords soon, and that's very Charles Ives. Just different lines, but they each works in its own way. And when you put them all together, you get something, and this is by no means perfect, but we've turned a pretty clunky, simple thing into something that now sounds like a flowing piece of music. Nice, that works okay. With a bit of finessing and moving some stuff around, it could be really, really useful. And it's all come out of these chords, stuff that doesn't work at first glance. B flat, D, F sharp diminished, and then this B major. And the only thing we did was over the F sharp, we added the C and the bass to give it more tension. Nice. Agent Smith says, writer of Bartok and Music for Strings and Central Park in the Dark. I love Charles Ives. Brilliant composer, and yeah, not that, well, much more popular these days. Interesting fact, well, you probably know, a lot of you may know this, but Charles Ives, famous American composer, who in his lifetime, I think, was an accountant maybe, or a bank clerk, I can't remember, but he spent his whole life kind of in relative obscurity as a composer, but then later down the line was recognized as one of the most important American composers of his time, and has influenced a huge number of people since, but was doing music on the side. Very interesting legacy. New England, yeah. Nice. So maybe we just try that. I think that works better. Cool, nice. So that's worked out pretty well. Nice, simple, sort of basic explanation about the idea of extending chords. If you guys have a little bit of theory of chords, say root third fifth or root minor third fifth, that's how you build major and minor. And then you can simply add sevenths. So you got the root, second, third, fourth, fifth, root, third, fifth, sixths. You can make chords like sixes as well. But most chords will be built of these stacks of sevenths. And then you add the ninth. And then you can add the 11th or a sharpened 11th. And then you can add things like the 13th, and just on it goes. And you can, in theory, well, once you get to 13th, you can't really go any further, because to go up another 2 takes you back to the original root note. But out of these, you can do lots of different things, and you can sharpen things. That's the sharpened 13th. Maybe we could sharpen, I don't know. Let's try sharpening. Maybe we like it, maybe we don't. I don't know. But yeah, there's lots of different ways of just expanding these harmonies. And the key, exactly like Agent Smith said, is, well, you can go further than the 13th, yeah. But you can go all the way up to, I mean, goodness knows where. But yeah, basically, this is all about just building basic triads and then thinking of each thing as its own kind of melody, if you like, or its own line within the music. And it's just how do you resolve each line. Nice. And we get some jazz going on. And a lot of John Williams' stuff is based on jazz. We're going to sort of look at a related technique now called polychords, which is really kind of extended harmony as well, but a more kind of straightforward explanation of extended harmony. Polychords are 2 chords that don't belong together on top of each other. Very, very common. Tom, when we were talking about the stream earlier on today, Tom reminded me of a great polychord. I think it was the C major. So play it there, and over the top of that, A flat major. Let me just show you. C major. That's very John Williams. I'll play it here. I think that was used in Harry Potter. If you could do lots of different polychords, you could take a G major, maybe a D flat major. Or maybe both. And again, this kind of goes back to these triads as well. It's all related to this idea of combining clashing harmonies, but in a way that works. Harmonic counterpoint, a 2-tonal sense in the counterpoint, and also the Obi-Wan theme, yes. So the Obi-Wan theme was based around the idea of just the C, and then what we did earlier on with the C and the F sharp was the same thing. I think that might be possibly Petrushka as well by Stravinsky. Or you could do the other way around, the F sharp and the C. I think that might be Petrushka actually. So polychords are two different chords that are two different tonal centers, essentially, as Agent Smith said, two tonal centers in the counterpoint, or it's just basically two chords that can be non-functional. It's not like combining C major and F major, which is a kind of polychord, but that's going to create a tonal chord. But if I put these two together, that's technically two unrelated chords, C major and G flat or F sharp. So if you put chords together from the same key, they will usually just create these kind of expanded harmonies. But if you're clashing essentially two chords together, you can create these really interesting things. John Williams uses this all the time. What I just played then is a kind of example. One of the most famous examples is, do you ever remember the countdown? Again, New Hope. Been talking a lot about New Hope today, the countdown with the Death Star. So it's this kind of... It just keeps going up. But it's all based on this really simple idea. C over F sharp, over D flat, essentially. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. That's how I think C, E flat, C, A flat. Yeah, you can just take any two chords. If you can build a triad, let's take a C. If you can build another triad, let's take an A, which is A, skip the second, go to the third, skip the fourth, go to the fifth. So now we built our A major. Combine them together, and you have a polychord. So kind of like what we were talking about with the triads earlier on. But really kind of interesting polychordal textures. Well worth utilizing. Again, things don't have to necessarily make harmonic sense. You don't have to stick in specific keys. In fact, it's much better usually if you don't. Michael Brecker plays an entire solo based in B minor while the band is in B flat minor. He keeps going in and out. I don't think I've ever heard that. I'm going to have to listen to that. Thanks for the recommendation. That's a great... But it just goes to show, right? If you have the confidence and the command as a musician, and I'm not a player at all, I definitely can't play that kind of stuff, but if you have confidence and command, you can make anything work together. You can literally build a whole climactic... In fact, maybe we'll do this. Let's do this now. We'll build a whole climactic idea out of just C. And then maybe the D flat over the top. Yeah, maybe just build something really simple like that. But yeah, just take two chords, play them together and see how they feel. So for example, Tom said about the C and the A flat. And this feels like it has to go there. If you just held it there, it's tension. You could keep tension going. But then when we go back to the C, everything is released and it sounds nice and it sounds lovely. So polychords are about what kind of tension, and you can do minor polychords maybe. Or I think this is from Holst, which is E minor and A flat minor. Beautiful, sound great. You could do major ones. So many different ways of playing around with them. Brecker is the GOAT. I will definitely check it out. That sounds great. Yeah. I don't know. Let's just maybe do something. Yeah. Let's do something really simple. Let's just take our ensemble. We're just going to have fun now. We're just going to build some big brass and string polychords. So I'm going to start in C. I'm going to make a simple rhythm. I'm going to change this to, yeah, let's do spiccatos. So, you'll be amazed. Have you sent the link? Great. Yeah, I'm well up for listening to that. Cool. Let's just try this. So I come up with a simple rhythm, C major. Yeah, so simple, and then we'll start building polychords over this. So it's all the C major at the moment. You can see we've got the low C, then the C, the octave above, then the E for the third, then we've got the G, and then we're back to the C. Let's just maybe take that one out. Are you there, possibly? Let's just listen to that. Keep that there. Okay. Maybe just take this down a little bit in velocity. Yeah, we'll just do that a couple of times and then we'll start building a polychord at the top. Who wants to choose another chord? Anybody have any chords that they'd like to just try and see if we can make something cool out of this? Yeah, choose another chord and we'll just try it. Keep that going. This is just the ensemble patch from Araya. I love Araya, really nice, just beautiful sound. Yeah, this is just straight out of the box Araya. Now let's choose another chord. Maybe we'll just do, yeah, maybe we will choose a D flat. And then maybe we'll go to E flat. Thanks, Agent Smith. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. F sharp major. Okay, let's try it. So, oh, let's just do F sharp major there, maybe. Let's try it. Nice, and now we can maybe build back to a C major briefly. Oh, I'll use the right key. Where are we? So we're kind of building a bit of a superhero theme. Yeah, okay, let's just do that. They do, Tom. Yeah, there's such a useful technique. Cool. So we have this really simple idea, but it's kind of like a building tension thing. Start with C major. Add the D flat. Back to the C major for moments of kind of respite. And then we go to the E flat via the D flat there. So just play that here. To the D flat. Nice, sounds really good. Adam, what about polychords that change around without the same chord in the bass? So what, we should maybe try... Let's try that, yeah. So what, keep the same chord in the upper octaves, you think, and then change the bass around? Or... Let's just try this. How does this sound? That's kind of cool. How do you copy chords with such ease? Do you press something when moving them? Yes. So in Cubase, and this is probably very different in other things, I can take a section, I can hold down Alt, see how my key changes there to this little square. And then when I drag, everything gets pulled out like this. And then I can drag quite easily then. Yeah, maybe at some point keep the top chord but change the bottom chord. Yeah, maybe let's do that. just see if this works. This could work. That would go down to the... Cool. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward in both. It's a really easy way of just moving chunks about quite quickly. I could do this if I wanted to. I don't want to do that. I've undone that now. Let's just put this on something like trombones. Let's just see what we get to with trombones. So, and same thing here. We're going to want to key switch staccato here. Now, these thirds probably don't sound quite as good in the trombones, so that's easy fix. That's nice. The brass with those fifths just sounds a lot more beefy, I think. Will this be available for replay? Yes, as soon as this is finished, this will all be available for replay, and our previous streams are available as well. Might just move that there, and then we've got the C over the F sharp. I'll do the same, of course, in the strings. This is where we're just massaging the kind of nice. Okay. Yeah, and this is it. It's more about feel, right? It's more about just what sounds kind of cool. Let's just try this. Like highlights from the stream. Would you like to see a cut down? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Would you guys like a cut down, kind of like a highlights? We'll also start putting chapter markers on the streams as well, so that you can kind of navigate to the things that you want to see quickly. Nice. Now I've got an idea. I don't know where this is coming from, but at this point, I think we do this. I'm going to take this out. We make this sustained. It's big, beefy. Let's just see what we think of this. Something like that. Maybe not quite that loud. Or maybe, actually, I've got a better idea. Of course. Keep that going. Should put that. Make a nice sustained patch here. It's going to be C sharp 1. And then we're just going to introduce the polychords, but big hell chords. I promise you we're not writing a whole piece of music here, but you can sort of see how it works better. Nice. By the way, any plans for a new batch of MIDI controllers? That's a very good question, and we can certainly find out if that's in the pipeline. As I said, we can, the guys at Audio Imperia are watching when they can, and if there's any announcements in those regards, we'll let you know. Maybe we could change the bass notes there at some point. And then we change it to something different there. So we've got a C over an E major here. Nice. Now we're moving to this D. So we've gone from this. So we got the C with the E major. And then the next, I think I'm going to go to the D over the A flat. That's a really cool little change there. Then put a counter line in the trumpets. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go, gang. Now we're on to something. Yeah, we said it. So. So. And then we'll just ramp up the intensity a bit here. Why not? Nice. And then when we change that in the brass, I think that's going to sound cool. And then we'll just do a little counter line on the trumpet. We'll probably end it there, but you know, you're getting the idea. So. And same thing here. We're going to ramp up the brass as we go on here. Okay. I mean, that's a great chord. How tense that is. And they have no relationship to each other. This is just a D over the G, the A flat, sorry, but it sounds really cool. Cool. And then we'll sort of just end it. We'll put that counter line in because I think that's a really good idea. Then we'll just sort of end it. Let's just try bringing that in. So here's what we've got. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. All just polychords. Maybe we just bring the chords, swell those chords in there. Something like that, and then we shall call it a day. Otherwise, we'll just lose ourselves making this music, which is very... I could definitely imagine this going somewhere. We made a bit of finesse, but we're all just using polychords. Everything has been a polychord in this little... Yeah, that's quite cool. And then I know what I would do here. I'm just going to do that, and then we're done. I would maybe put something. Let's just put it in Dolce. Why not? Just gives that really nice high wire top line. Gives it a lot of power. Just adding that little weight at the top there, which sounds really cool. yeah, so, and then we'll look at one more technique. I think we'll go for another 15 minutes or so, 10 minutes. And I think maybe we'll add this technique on to maybe this example here. We'll see. Or maybe we'll actually, maybe we'll recapture what we've done so far, kind of go through everything so you can hear. Thank you so much for joining us. Cool. So let's go through each one that we've done. And if we've got time, maybe we'll do one more. But we've done sort of 5 here. I think the first one we did was this really simple use of triads, particularly planing triads. In other words, keeping a kind of bass note consistent, or a counter bass note, kind of similar to polychords, but sort of used more texturally, I guess. And that sounds really nice. It can instantly create a sense of mystery or a sense of kind of this roving, ambiguous quality because there's no tonal center. So we did this really simple example. So you can imagine that in like Star Wars or Indiana Jones, it's got a very reminiscent technique. We could add extra orchestral flourishes, harps and stuff like that. But that's just a basic idea. Practice using simple triads and literally keeping them. Just keeping them in the same pattern. And like I said, if you're a fan of Harry Potter, oh, can't play today. But that's all based around triads. All just triads throughout the whole little section. Sounds great. So it's a very common John Williams technique, but works really well. Hello, Holst. Yeah, it's very Holstein as well. Of course, we put all these examples together in what, 20 minutes, 25 minutes each or something. So just goes to show good, solid orchestral techniques. You can get going pretty quickly. Next thing we looked at was contrapuntal textures or imitative textures and leitmotifs. So we sort of covered these together in the same track. Now we'll start with leitmotifs. Leitmotifs are the idea of taking a theme and weaving it in different ways. So for example, we've got the force theme, which can sound beautiful, like we've heard it before, where it sounds like this. Oh, I love that. That's just a nucleus solo French horn as well. But what John Williams has done is made it into a bit of an action piece here. He's taken the same basic thing, changed the melody, or not the melody, but the rhythm slightly. And then added imitative counterpoint here. So he's taken these little short staccato pieces. He's taken these moments and he's using them to support and add interest in the trombones and the horns, and it sounds great. Let me just take this piano off. So, and this is all nucleus and Jaeger, I think. Sounds really good. Oh, might help if I'm using the right. There we go. Make it sound good. There we go. Sounds really good. And it's all just based around this idea of taking a theme or an idea and adding these contrapuntal textures, these imitative textures. So rather than just big block chords, you know, John Williams could have just done something like, let's just take, for example, he could have done this. It wouldn't sound great, but could have just done something like this. Which is the same chord, but obviously it doesn't sound as interesting. All he's done is broken that chord up, but listen how much more interesting and dynamic this sounds. Beautiful, sounds great. And it's just taken that chord and broken them up and imitated, done something that he's done in the melody in a way that it's sort of reminiscent but not exact in the supporting material. Sounds great. And that, as we said, is also about leitmotif as well. The idea of writing themes that can be malleable. We've talked about this in the Modern Composer Blueprint, you know, and we use that in our example in the Modern Composer Blueprint of taking a theme and finding different ways to express that theme, maybe for an action sequence, maybe for a sad sequence or a heartfelt sequence or a mysterious sequence. Find themes that have interesting characteristics that can be applied across different genres, feels, moods, styles, whatever you need for scoring. We'll love to see these added to the Maestro course. Maybe we could do this. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about taking that Maestro course and maybe, you know, see if we can find ways to improve and give you guys more from it. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in that idea. And I will definitely make a note of all these great suggestions you guys have. Cool. So that sounds great. And again, can't take any credit for this. This is John Williams' writing, but we have 3 instruments going on here. Listen how huge it sounds because it's well written. You don't listen to this and think, oh, it sounds empty or it sounds sparse. This sounds like a full piece of music. And we put it together in, what, 20, not even 20 minutes, 10 minutes. When it's well written, in the case of John Williams, 3 instruments, just playing those simple staccato and sustaining notes. And it sounds brilliant. It's instantly come to life and I've done nothing. I've not done any MIDI programming really, copied and paste. Would you share this MIDI program on Discord for us? I certainly can. Yeah, I can certainly share this one for you guys. Next thing we talked about is harmony. In particular, John Williams' use of expanded techniques in harmony, expanded harmony, extended harmony. So as we said, the principle of this is taking triads and expanding them out. Or, so there we go. We've got a C sharp 11th, 13th, or we could just do C sharp 11th, or we could do major 9th, all the way back down to the triads. So all we're really doing is taking and expanding our chords on basic principles and then finding ways to add tension and resolution to those chords. And as you can hear, it takes a really simple line like this that we put together on our sketch. Nice, but a bit clunky, you know, but with a little bit of, not even really finesse because we didn't do that much to it, but sounds really nice. It would need a bit of work. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. We're extending these chords out. We're creating more richness. We're creating more tension, more dissonance, as we call it, that we can resolve into these beautiful consonances. So by the time we get to this last chord here, which is a nice big suspension chord followed by the major chord, all that tension that we've been building up just resolves at the very end there. Really nice, simple technique, but well worth trying to get your head around these things. Build a simple harmony, maybe just use some major and minor chords and then see, can you add 7ths? Can you add 9ths? Can you start resolving those 7ths and 9ths and 11ths and so on in ways that make sense and that work? And it's all really simple. Again, the harmony is a guideline. It's not a rule book. And I think that's really important to remember. You know, yes, there are rules in harmony, but they've been broken many, many times. And in fact, all of the progression of harmony over the last 200 years has been because people have broken those rules and said, hey, I'm not doing that. I'm going to find different ways to do these. And jazz, you know, romantic scoring, 20th century symphonic scoring has all been about breaking those rules and just going with instinct, you know, having a solid foundation and then building on that foundation. So yeah, don't be afraid. Write a simple melody, a simple harmony, and then go to town on it. Start adding 7ths and 9ths and 11ths, and you know, just find ways to kind of add tension and resolution. And you'll be surprised. You know, there are no rules. It's all just about how you can express yourself with these basic ideas. And we'll do probably finally, I think, is these polychords. So polychords, kind of building on what we've talked about, but essentially 2 disconnected harmonic chords or harmonies put together. So we have, thank you so much for the love. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You could take a C, you could add a B flat, you could add a D flat. If any of you guys know the Jurassic Park sequel, The Lost World, it's all based on polychords, or C. It's all just C. That's all it is. But adding that C instantly adds really interesting stuff. So all we've done today is we've just kept mostly in C apart from the D at the end, and we've just used the same basic thing. We've added these polychords together, and in a few minutes we created something that, again, would need a lot of work, but kind of sounds pretty cool. There's some snares and timpani. We sort of ended there, but you can see where we're going. We changed the polychords. We were in C. And then we went to D with the A flat. So another polychord, but we changed key essentially. We went from this C underpinning everything to this D. Sounds great. Again, very much like Holst, very much like John Williams. Great symphonic technique. Play around with it. Don't be afraid to mash chords together. Again, it's all about feel, all about, do these things work? You hear this stuff all the time in John Williams. If you would try and analyze it, it's very hard to analyze precisely because it's just flowing. You know, there's no real center for this stuff. It's just moving, but it's moving so intelligently and it's moving so beautifully and it's moving with such great sort of just attention to flow and attention to the sort of, you know, the emotional stakes that are on screen at any particular point. These things that sound chaotic when taken individually just work and they tell a story. Listen to the T-Rex attack from Jurassic Park, listen to the Battle of Yavin, listen to, there's so many different cues. The Julian the Basilisk in Harry Potter, great examples of using a lot of these techniques and not really worrying too much on having tonal centers or staying in any particular key, just moving and finding great ways of creating tension and release. All my composer parts, you should check out Clear Obscure Expedition 33. It's genius, really. Great. I will definitely check that out. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Cool. So I think we'll probably leave it there for today. We got through 5 techniques. There were 1 or 2 more that would have been good to go through, but maybe we'll do them in a separate episode. We will definitely do some more John Williams. We're probably going to do a live stream in the not too distant future where we maybe focus on writing a cue in a John Williams style, whether it's a, I don't know, Star Wars style cue or a Harry Potter style cue or an Indiana Jones style cue. I don't know, but I would love to do something where we can focus on these techniques in more detail. There's a few other things he uses a lot of, like cinematic runs, woodwind runs, string runs, etc. They're always really useful as like transition elements. These days we have modern orchestras use a lot more, like in trailers, you use big hits and rolls and cymbal crashes and cymbal swells. But back before all the modern, sound hype that goes into doors and really well-designed sound design, you had to find different ways to create that excitement. And that was often done through woodwind runs or string runs, which to this day still sound great and are still used a lot in cinematic music. But that's a very common technique that John Williams uses as well. There's a lot more that we could go through. Maybe we'll do a part 2 to this. Thank you, Nick. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, this was really good fun. And it was a little way to celebrate May the 4th. It's been great. And yes, thank you, Tom, for joining us as well. It's been great to have you and Ollie whilst I've been busy trying to make some music. It's been great to have you guys on the chat. I'm going to go back through the chat and see where we're at with it. Cool. So we'll head back to just chatting. We'll wrap up a little bit and then we shall move away for the day and say goodbye. So let's head back to just chatting. Cool. There he is. John Williams, the maestro. He's just found such a great language of his own, but it's all built on techniques of other great composers over the years. Korngold, Stravinsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, Holst, and then back further. He's also a big his big influence was Aaron Copland, people like that. These are all people worth checking out. And they've used a lot of these techniques as well, but he's combined them in a way that it's his own language. And he's unmistakable, John Williams. Today we went through a few of his most common techniques. try writing a piece with some of these techniques. Maybe me and Tom are going to do a challenge. We were talking today. Maybe we're going to do a challenge where we have to use 3 of these techniques in our composition, whatever the composition is. Maybe you guys try that too. If you're on our Discord, feel free to have a go at this and post something up. Maybe try writing something with triads, polychords. Maybe try expanding your harmonies a bit if you're not used to doing that. We would love to hear what you come up with. I'm super excited to hear, you know, what you guys would do with some of these techniques. And if you haven't used them before, be brave. They're all great techniques. They're all really good fun to experiment with. Would love such a challenge. Have you conducted music? I have conducted music. I'm not a great conductor, but over the years I've conducted. My very first conducting experience was when I was lucky enough to convince a local orchestra to do a short film soundtrack for my friend's fantasy film. So I conducted them. And then way back in the 2000s, I conducted a few times on some very small ensembles for some production music libraries and things like that. I'd love to do some more conducting, but it's you know, it's not something that I'm super experienced with. I can do it well enough, you know, that I could do it. But I mean, obviously some conductors are incredible communicators, incredible interpreters of music. That's a bit rusty on my half, but I would love to do more conducting. It's great fun. There's no better feeling than working with musicians. And yeah, who knows? Maybe one day I get to do it again. Another great thing about John Williams as well, of course, is that he's an incredible conductor and has conducted most of his own music over the years. And that's quite rare in the industry. You know, a lot of composers don't conduct, sometimes for good reason, sometimes just because it's not a skill they've developed. John Williams came from a very, very sort of conservatoire music background, a music education background. So he learned to conduct. And you can watch videos of him conducting orchestras all over the world, including for his scores. And yeah, he's a very, very brilliant conductor too, and well a composer. Some people get all the talent right, but yeah, he's the maestro definitely. But conducting is very fun. So I think we're going to wrap this up for today, pretty much. Cosmonic say, how much does sheet music impact in your composition? Do you study sheet music from a sound point of view or from the sheet music score point of view? That's a really interesting question. If I write quite differently personally, and I think a lot of people would. If I'm writing into sheet music or I'm thinking about writing for an orchestra that would record live, I think very differently, and I think much more reduced personally. I think about how each instrument in the orchestra could play a line. If they're playing a line, then they won't be available to play another line. So you have to think much more selectively about, well, if the French horns are playing chords here, they can't also play a melody. Or if the trombones are playing chords here, then they can't play big bass notes, etc., etc. So you become much more sort of, it's like putting together a puzzle. When you're writing into a DAW, obviously there's no such constraints. If you don't want them, you can layer up longs and shorts, and you can have 500 strings if you want playing, and you can have short French horns and long French horns, and you can combine synths with orchestras. So it's much more liberating in that way, and that's why we have a load of really amazing sort of modern sound design and things. But yeah, again, John Williams has always written piano, sheet music, and he's thought about the orchestra as one group of instruments that he has to manipulate in real time to get the textures he wants. So that's another interesting way of thinking about writing music as well, when you're limited. And it's a great exercise. Again, I encourage you guys, if you haven't done that before, try and write a cue where you really have to use the orchestra like it's one set of instrumentalists, you know, so you only have 16 violins, you only have 10 violas, you can't do infinite divide, you can't have the violins playing melodies and chords and shorts at the same time. You really have to think about making the most out of everything. Yeah, it's well worth doing. And I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously it's an incredible opportunity these days to be able to layer orchestras and samples and sound design together. But yeah, it's a good practice to just really think of an orchestra as one group of instruments. Great question though, Cosmodium, as always. Thank you so much. So yeah, the big thing from today, obviously we've had a bit of fun doing John Williams, but the big thing from today is that we are moving next week to the big channel, the main channel, the Audio Imperia channel. So it's going to be the same content. If anything, there's going to be a lot more content, both live streams and pre-recorded stuff. So nothing's changing in that respect. It's just all going over to our big channel where we can finally really launch fully. And you know, we've been building up to this for a long time, and we're really excited about getting Maestro out there as it's going to be Audio Imperia now, but you know, getting it out there as our sort of weekly stream, weekly content, really going to town and having fun and composing and involving you guys. Discord will stay active, of course. So if you're not signed up, please do. If you are signed up, please continue contributing. And the Learn with Maestro YouTube page will remain, but it's going to become who knows what. Our experimental, let's just try stuff and see what happens page. If you guys have got any ideas, let us know in the Discord or in the chat or however you want to. We would always love to hear what you guys would like to see. The Mothership channel. That's right, Tom. Yeah, me and Tom, we're heading to the Mothership. We've been allowed in. We've been knocking on the door for a while. And finally, they've opened up the Mothership. We're getting beamed up and we're going to be on the big screens of Audio Imperia YouTube channel now, which is very exciting. I think we're going to expand our community, but we're also going to obviously have our core group who have been with us since the Twitch days. Thank you so much for joining us and staying with us. We really appreciate that. And you guys have given us all the confidence and help and support and allowed us to make all our mistakes, like not charging our mouse, which of course wouldn't happen in today's modern streams. But yeah, you've been with us from the beginning. We really appreciate that. But now, yeah, we're gonna be launching on a bigger playing field with a lot more fun to come. So I think we will wrap that up today. John Williams, always great to do John Williams stuff. And now we're moving over to the Audio Imperia channel. So if you're not subscribed to that channel, please do. If you are subscribed, that's where we will be from now on. And this channel will become just a big experimental playground. Lots of fun stuff to come. So thank you guys. I'm going to go head off and enjoy the rest of the UK sun, which is quite rare, but we've had a fair bit of it recently. Hope wherever you guys are, you have a great time, whatever you're going to do. If you're writing music, good luck. Hope you have a great time doing it. It's always fun. And we would love to hear if you're able to share it or you want to share it with us on Discord. We would love to hear it. I'm going to listen to these other Star Wars tracks this evening as well. Cool. So I think that's all of the housekeeping done. That's our John Williams stream. There will be more of those in the future. I'm not sure what we're doing next week, but we will have something cool lined up for you. For the rest of the week, have a great time, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. And yes, keep in touch with us. And we look forward to bringing you lots more on the Audio Imperia channel. I will say bye for now. Good evening to you, Cosmodium, and everyone else. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a great day. Take care, guys.